Good evening. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the stage manager, and this is Our Town, a play written by Thornton Wilder, produced and directed by Mr. Bousquet. In it, you will see Mr. Novak, Miss Ainsley, Miss Bellinger, Mr. Caceres, Mr. Sharp, Miss Brown, and Mr. Swinberg, and many others. The setting of this play is a small town called Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just over the Massachusetts state line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. This first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time, just before dawn. You can see some streaks of light begin to show in the east there, beyond our mountain. Ah, yes. The morning star always gets awful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I guess I better show you how our town lies. Down here is Main Street, and way back there is the railroad station. Tracks go that way. Across the tracks is Polish Town and some Canuck families. Over here is the Congregational Church. Presbyterians across the street. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the holla, well, by the river that is. Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Let's see. Back there is our town hall and post office combined. Jail's in the basement. William Jennings Bryan once made a speech from those very steps. We're very proud of that. Along here is a row of stores. Horse blocks and hitching posts in front of them. Let's see, we have the grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody manages to look into those two stores at least once a day. The first automobile is going to come along in, about 5 years from now. Belong to banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. Lives in the big White House up on the hill. Public schools over yonder. High schools farther over still. 8:45 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. This here is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, beans, peas, hollyhock, heliotrope, and quite a lot of burdock. In those days, our local paper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel. And this is its editor's house, Editor Webb. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. The same as Mrs. Gibbs, except it's got quite a lot of sunflowers, too. And right here, smack dab in the center of them, is a big old beautiful butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody ever remarkable came out of it, so far as we know. The earliest tombstones up in the cemetery there say 1670 to 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Herseys. Same names as are around here now. Well, as I said, it's just about dawn. The only lights on in town are across the tracks, where a Polish mother's just had twins, and in the Crowell house, where Joe Jr. is getting ready to deliver the paper, and down at the depot, where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 for Boston. Hear it? Naturally, out in the country and all around, lights have been on for some time, what's with milking and so on. But town people sleep late. So, another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case. And here's his wife coming down to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, long time ago, in fact. Yes, she went down to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there in pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up there in the cemetery now, in with the whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. And here's Mrs. Webb, coming down to make her breakfast as well. And that's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Crowell Jr., getting ready to deliver Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick?
No, just some twins born over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I will take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster, is getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business, but if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's it telling you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
You ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
Want to tell you something about that boy Joe Crowther. Joe was awful bright. Graduated from high school here, head of his class, so he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But then, the war broke out, and he died in France. All that education for nothing. Here comes Howie Newsom, delivering the milk.
Giddy up, Bessie. What's the matter with you today? Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
Pair of twins over to Mrs. Gorolowski's.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
Going to rain, Howie?
No, fine day, that'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. Say, Howie, how old is she now?
Going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking their quarter milk. She keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doctor's coming down the street.
Izzy, seems like you're late today.
Yes, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc.
Howie.
Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca, everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Here, sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. I guess I know what it's about, too. Her stomach just ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it'd do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
I declare, you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school.
George!
Yes, Pa.
Well, I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, can you wash your bed or I'll come up and do it myself.
Ma, what dress shall I wear?
Do not make a noise. Your father has been out all night and needs his rest. I washed and ironed the gray gingham for you, special.
Ma, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school just like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George is throwing soap at you.
I will come up and slap the both of you. That is what I will do.
We've got a factory in our town, too. Hear it? Cartwrights own it, and it brung them a fortune.
Children, no, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, and that's a fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Oh, Ma, by 10 o'clock I gotta know all about Egypt.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know that I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I will speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week is enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's good to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do ya? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Mama, there's first bell.
I gotta hurry.
I don't want any more.
Bye, Mama.
Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. You can remember that, can't you?
Yes, Ma.
You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet.
Goodbye.
Here, chicky, chicky, chicky. Aw, go away, you. Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do.
get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I do not tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some more of those beans, will you? All right. Now, Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he's a patient and wanted to see Doc Gibbs. Then he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting there.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
I know that old thing. Why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to my cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know. $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It sounds crazy, I suppose. But for years, I've been promising myself that if I ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush and said if I got a legacy, that's the way I'd put it, I'd make him take me somewhere.
What did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move on over to the Civil War, only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the best experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times we've walked over those hills. Now, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it out like we were going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details of our past history here. Is Professor Willard here? May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university. Just a few brief notes, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies in the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range, and they say it's some of the oldest land of the world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale, and some sandstone outcroppings. That's all, more recent. Since then, some Slav Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard?
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor. There were twins?
Ah, yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district leads with 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality birthday is constant. MacPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. We're all very obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
This way, Professor. And thank you again. Now, for the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb.
He'll be out in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know. Here he is, Mr. Webb.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men. 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have you any other comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. Little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller, but our young people here seem to like it very much. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb any questions? You, ma'am.
Well, ma'am, I don't know what you call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in Ellery Greenow's stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. You're right, ma'am. There ain't much, except in the medicine chest. Right good for snake bite, you know? Always was.
Just a moment. Come forward, will you, where we can all hear you.
Oh, yes, everybody is something terrible. Seems like they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor. Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else to find a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions? Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean.
I'm good.
Come to think of it, there's some girls that play the piano at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain, and we notice a good deal about the birds. Pay a lot of attention to them. And we like to watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about that. You're right, ma'am. There ain't much.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now, we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town. A buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Horses dozing at the hitching posts. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people, making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. Ooh, no sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
I can't, Lois. I've got to go home and help my mom. I promise.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
What am I going to do with you, Emily?
Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, I was really ready to give one about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Mrs. Corcoran made me change it to the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on them both.
Gee, Emily, from my window up there, I can practically see you in your room and during your headlights when you're doing your homework.
Why can you?
Yeah, you certainly do stick to it, Emily. I guess you like school.
I figure it's something you have to go through.
Yeah,
I don't mind it really. It passes the time.
yeah. Emily, what do you think? Maybe we can work a telegraph from my window to yours, and every now and then you can give me a little hint in those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hints.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So if you get stuck, George, just whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
You're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figure it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer on my Uncle Luke's farm, and he says whenever I'm ready, and if I'm any good, I can gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I better be getting out to the baseball fields, Emily. Oh, good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George. Emily, come and help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? My, he's growing up. How old would George be? I don't know. Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You've got a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town. Next to Mamie Cartwright.
Oh, Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. That'll do. I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt again here. You see, there are a few more things we want to explore about this town. I think now is a pretty good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in a cornerstone for people to dig up, say, 1,000 years from now. They're putting in a copy of the New York Times, a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. You see, we're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of painting all that reading material with a glue, a silicate glue, that'll make it keep 1,000, maybe even 2,000 years. Let's see. They're putting in the Bible, the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it. Yet all we know about them is the names of some of the kings, some copies of wheat contracts, contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, all those families sat down to supper. The father came home from his work, the smoke went up the chimney, same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and comedies that they wrote for the theater back then. So you know what? I'm going to have a copy of the play put in the cornerstone. That way, people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than, say, the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, in our marrying, in our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time's gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the congregational church over there. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Softer. Softer. Now look here, everyone. Music comes into the world to give pleasure. Get out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. Leave the loudness to the Methodist. Couldn't beat them if you tried. Now, again, tenors.
Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I just can't work. The moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which one?
The third?
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it, Emily. Can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
In square yards?
Yes, George. Don't you see it?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper? Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight terrible? And the sound of choir practice going on? If you're quiet, I bet you can hear the train all the way to Conticook. Can you hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I'd better get back to work.
Well, good night, Emily, and thanks.
Good night, George.
Before I forget, how many are able to come to Fred Harris's wedding next week? Show of hands. That'll be good. That'll be right nice. We'll be doing the same song we did for Jane Throwbridge's last month. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Make yourself comfortable, son. I'll only keep you a moment. How old are you now?
I am 16, almost 17.
And what would you like to do after school's over?
Why, you know, Pa, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early and milk and feed the stock? And you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Well, sure I will. What do you mean?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother, chopping wood. There you see your mother, getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. Yet, you eat her meals and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but that we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. And I've decided to raise your spending money, 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for you chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present you give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine there are a lot of things you must find to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let us see. Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca feels she ought to have some more, too. Wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice never was as late as this before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't even know why she's in that old choir anyway. She hasn't any more voice than an old crow, traipsing around the streets at this hour of the night. Well, just about time you're tired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mr. Foster.
I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late. Good night, Irma. Myrtle Webb. Look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but now we're alone. Really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of the church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson and the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him there on his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is to just not notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. Better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
Good night.
Night. Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's his brightest day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window. You think we've been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping in the corner to gossip with those hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What'd you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. So what were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stinson far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? You know, Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I just know more about Simon Stinson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people just ain't made for small town living. I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
Worried about what?
Well, I believe that it's my duty for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's just no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come, get in. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyway. I talked to George tonight. No. Start getting upstairs.
There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild locks her front door every night. All those people of that part of town do.
That's the problem with them. They're all getting citified. They haven't got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Just let me look a minute.
Go use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon was getting nearer and nearer, the guys that stay up all night with telescopes would tell us about it, and it would be all over the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on Canada, South America, and half the whole world?
Well, it probably is.
It's about 9:30 now. Most of the lights are out. Here comes Constable Warren, checking a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb, after putting his paper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Yep.
All quiet tonight?
Simon Simmons is rolling around. Just saw his wife on the hunt for him, so I went the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Yes, town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Can I walk along ways with you? All right, then.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, can you give him a word? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
Oh, I don't think he smokes no cigarettes. Leastways, 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Well, good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I just can't sleep. The moonlight is so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles on your mind, Emily, have you?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself, Emily. Don't let your mother catch you up there.
Good night, Papa.
Minister when she was sick. He wrote her a letter, and on the envelope it said, Jane Crawford, Crawford Farms, Grover's Corner, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
Well, what's funny about that?
But wait, I'm not finished. United States of America, the continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the universe, and the mind of God.
What do you know?
And the postman delivered it just the same.
What do you know?
That's all for the first act, friends. Now let's have some singing.
by the gentle waters, you will safely lead me. In green pastures feed me, knowing what is best. Though I often stray, wander far away, I can hear you say, come to me and rest. Though the path be rough and rugged, though the trails be dark and steep, still the gentle shepherd watches o'er his sheep. There's no need to fear when the shepherd's near, when your voice I hear, I find comfort sure, free from all alarm, sheltered from all harm, safely in your arms, I can rest secure. With the flock abiding, all my needs supplying, comforting and guiding, leading all the way, all the way. Jesus, loving shepherd, you'll forsake me never, in your flock forever. I am not alone. Oh, the darkness hide me, you are close beside me, gentle shepherd, guide me till I'm safely home, till I'm safely home, safely home.
This time, 3 years have gone by, friends. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born yet have begun talking regular sentences already. And some young people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed that they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to. At least, not without their hearts fluttering a little bit. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in some other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountains got away a few more fractions of an inch, millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world crawls into their graves married. The first act was called daily life. This act is called love and marriage. There is a third act coming after this, and I reckon you can all guess what that's about. So, as I said, it's 3 years later, 1904. It's July 7th, just after the high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. Soon as they pass their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, feels like they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning again, only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. Yesterday, all along Main Street, it looked like curtains being blown along. It may begin again in any minute. There's the 5:45 for Boston. And here comes Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb. Come down to make breakfast as though it were an ordinary day. Now, I'm sure that I don't have to point out to the ladies in my audience that these two women that they see before them, both of these women cook 3 meals a day, one for 20 years, the other for 40, with no summer vacation. They've raised 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said. You gotta have life to love life, and you gotta love life to have life. It's what they call a vicious circle. Here comes Howie Newsome, once again delivering the milk. And here comes Cy Kroll, delivering the paper just like his brother before him.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Cy. Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Not much, except for losing the best baseball pitcher Rovers Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married, would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had no talent that way. You're a burly Bill.
If I can do anything to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Cy Crowell is all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player by the name of Hank Todd. Went to Maine, became a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how's the weather look?
Oh, ain't bad. Think maybe a clear up.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Morning, Miss Gibbs. It rained so heavy, I think maybe it clear up for good.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want today?
Oh, well, Howie, I'm going to have a house full of relations. Seems to me that I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife says to tell you how we both hope you'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thank you, Howie. And tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Yes, she'll be there if she can. Morning, Miss Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsome. I know I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, and 2 of cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsome?
Well, just saying to Mrs. Gibbs how it may lighten up. Mrs. Newsome told me to tell you how we both hope you'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsome. And we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yep, we hope to get there. Couldn't miss that.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says I do to the mirror, but it don't sound very convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll handle himself. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it that he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch the death of cold within a week.
He'll be fine.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
I was just remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, don't you start with that. Here, I made you some French toast.
Why, Julia Hershey, French toast.
Well, it ain't that hard to make, and I had to do something.
You know one of the things I was scared of most when I married you?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spells.
Oh, good weather, bad weather ain't very choice, but I always found something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No, only the year of the day that Rebecca has been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I get the impression that she's crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come down and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where do you think you're going?
I'll just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You put them on. Put them on.
It's just a step, Ma.
Now, George, you'll catch the death of a cold and cough all throughout the service.
George, just do as your mother tells you.
While you live in my house, you will live wisely. Thank you. From tomorrow on, you can go and kill yourself in all weathers. You know, maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
Be back in a minute, Ma. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Oh, goodness. You frightened me. Now, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
You know as well as I do that the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day. Not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just a superstition, Mother. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in superstition like that, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
Wait, where's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet.
Emily's
I haven't heard a
asleep?
sound out of her.
She's asleep?
Well, it's no wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. And I'll go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Fine. Fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head apt to be full of clothes and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes. I never thought of that.
On her wedding day, she's probably nervous.
I just wish a fella could get married without all the marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George. But it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who run weddings, my boy. For a while now, a man looks pretty small at a wedding. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Mr. Webb, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I've been away to college, and I've taken some time to settle down. But Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is now. Oh, age hasn't much to do with it, George. Not compared with other things.
Well, what were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, start out showing who's boss. First thing to do is to give an order, even if it don't even make any sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation, or anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll show her. And oh yes, he said, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never take advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been very fond of chickens, but I had thought...
A book came into my office the other day on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I was thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard and maybe putting an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, If you want to give the boy some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with him.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, guess you never heard of that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom has ever seen his father-in-law on the day of the wedding or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, then whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired old lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are now going to show you the conversation that they had when, well, as the saying goes, they knew that they were meant for each other. But first, I want you to try and remember what it was like when you were young. Particularly the days when you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were in, or hear everything that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of the high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep, there they are coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Lois. I've got to go home. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero just the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Thank you. It isn't far.
Oh, say, Bob, if I'm a little late to practice, start anyway, and throw Herb some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Oh, goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awful glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me funny lately.
Well, since you ask, I might as well say it right out. George, Goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran.
Oh, goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran. So, what is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? Well, what do you mean?
Well, up until a year ago, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you as you did everything, because we'd been friends so long. And then you started spending all your time at baseball, and you never really stopped to talk to anyone anymore. Not even your own family, you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've gotten awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. They may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back, and it hurts me to hear them say it, but I've got to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry that I said it.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that. I never thought that such a thing was creeping into my character. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
Well, I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, as far as I can see my father is, and as far as I can see your father is too. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be as well.
Well, I think it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man because we girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
Now I can see that it isn't the truth at all, and I suddenly feel that it isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like to get an ice cream soda or something with me before you go home?
Why, thank you. I would.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by a hard store wagon. Tom Hawkins drives like a crazy man.
Shh. Well, now you just take a glass of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What'll you have?
I'll have, a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are over 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was just in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. I tell you, the best thing to do nowadays is just to stay home. Why? I could remember when a dog could sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing could come along to disturb him. There they are. Enjoy them. Yes, Miss Ellis. What can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Oh, don't think of it like that, Emily. We're celebrating our election. But do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No?
I'm celebrating because I have a friend that tells me all the things that ought to be told to me.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true. You're...
No, Emily, listen. What you said was right. And I'm going to make a big change. You bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What is it?
If I go away to State Agriculture College, will you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems that being away 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't seem so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners is not a very important town when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
Yeah, there wouldn't want to be the day where I don't know everything that's going on in this town. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to State Agriculture School.
Why, George?
Yeah, and most of them say you can get all the information out of the pamphlets and the information the government sends you.
My.
Yeah, gosh, if anything, going to new towns and meeting new people, I guess new people aren't any better than the older ones. And I feel like you're as good as a friend as I've got, Emily, and I don't need to go to new towns and go to college for that.
But George, maybe it's important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make my mind up tonight. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it.
Well, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It is a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me like you did about that fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. For instance, when you say that you were watching me for a year and watching everything I did, well, I was doing the same about you. I always made sure who you were sitting with on the bleachers and who you were talking to and who you were walking home with. And for the past 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but instead you just walked home with Mrs. Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? I thought...
No, Emily, listen. I feel like once you found a person that you're very fond of, who's very fond of you too, I think that's just as important as college is.
I think it's very important too.
Emily, if I do change and make a big improvement, would you be, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
So, I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
Hold on a minute, Emily. I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I have to run home and get you the money to pay for this.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, Mr. Morgan, but I have my reasons. Here's my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
That's all right, George. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll only be 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George, and not a day over. Got all over your shock, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well then, let's get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't fit them all into one wedding naturally, and especially not a wedding at Grover's Corners where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister, and I believe that gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. Now, I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a couple minutes ago. People were meant to live 2 by 2. Now, this is a good wedding, but even at good weddings, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds, and we thought that ought to be included in our play as well. Now, the real hero of this scene isn't on the stage at all, and you all know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now, and we all know she's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too, and that's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors, millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. Wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It all came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years, and now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, "I can't eat another mouthful," and she put her head down on the table, and she cried.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen to me. All I want to do is be a fella.
No, George, you're a man now.
Ma.
You'll be okay, George. You'll be okay.
Wait, where's Emily?
Oh, George, you gave me such a turn.
Oh, cheer up, Ma, I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights for Emily and I. We'll be over every Thursday night for dinner. You'll see. Come on, we gotta get ready for this.
I've never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so... I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa, Papa!
Emily, now don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Shh, everything's all right.
Why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
Now stop and think a minute, Emily.
But don't you remember that you used to say, all the time you used to say, all the time, that I was your girl? There must be somewhere we can go. I can work for you. I'll keep house.
Shh. You mustn't think of such things, Emily. You're just nervous. George, will you come here a minute? Why, George is the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
But Papa...
George, I'm giving away my daughter. Do you think you could take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to. I want to try. Emily, I love you, and I need you.
If you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me.
Emily, I will. I will try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting for us. Now everything will be all right. Come quick.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife? To have
Perfectly lovely wedding, loveliest wedding I've ever seen. Oh, how I do love the perfect wedding. Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
Don't know when I've been to such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just love to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, this is just lovely.
I do.
The ring?
Right.
You know, I married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? Absolutely. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I just know they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The most important thing is to be happy.
That's the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission. Yeah. All right, let's take this down. Yep. Don't hurt yourself. Yeah. Watch out.
Good job, Nick. Are you allowed to go out or no? Are you allowed to go out?
You can go out and do what you need. What? Yeah, I heard you. Yeah. All right, guys. Just one more act, guys. We got this. Yeah. Look, doesn't look too bad. Yeah, it fits you pretty good. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Don't touch my boyfriend.
Boyfriend? Don't you have a husband?
Oh.
Nick, Joy's my boyfriend.
What?
Come here, baby.
Oh my goodness. Come on.
I'm kinda Nick.
Calm down. Key button this real quick.
I'm lonely.
Yeah.
I'm lonely. It's a double-breasted jacket.
Yeah. There you go. Are you gonna wear this the whole?
Outside first, you do the inside first. Oh, that's fine. Just do the outside.
Yeah,
So
we
just
don't
wear it like
need the
this.
whole thing.
Nick,
Yeah.
did you see what happened here?
What?
How I skipped 2 pages ahead.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
I don't know. During which part?
When about the second
Yeah, there you go.
half. No, I skipped ahead 2 pages. I was about the French toast. And like, here, I made something.
Oh,
I skipped
yeah.
ahead 2 pages.
That's
And then I skipped back 2 pages.
that's fine. You guys got through it.
I got stuck at Miss Webb's house.
Yeah.
How was that? Because they had the same 2 lines.
What's your name again? Where am I? What's going on? Yeah. Where am I again? Where am I?
In the end of the wedding.
No, I don't. What were you doing?
I was like,
John Henry. I can't. I'm gonna throw up if I drink.
it's so hard when they're
Yep.
like,
Yeah. I'm ready. Are you ready? You're doing good so far. Yep. This is like the first time we've done it without messing up. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot the part between me and Ben where he's like, "Excuse me, Miss Forrest." I completely forgot about that part from Act 1, where he runs into me with the baseball. Oh, okay.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Plus, your
Good.
Sunday part 2 would notice.
Yeah. Yeah. But we got.
Your
And then.
face is beat red.
Yeah.
You
It
see, I
is.
know it
Yeah. Yeah, and our part, you like, you did, no, he did his first 3 lines, then he skipped to the last one.
No, I see what happened
He
was my
skipped like
brain
his
went
whole
through 4
part.
different
Yeah.
paragraphs at once. And I was just like, I wasn't ready for that much stage fright that I freaked out. But hey, nobody noticed besides me and you. It's all that matters.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think we should skip this.
Yeah.
Where was he? I didn't see him.
He's in the back
I'll try it.
with the camera. So you doing okay, Melody? You doing good? Yeah. Hanging in there?
You're like,
yo, that's it. When the mic just went crazy, you're like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, I'll probably have a bigger
No.
part than
No, I tell you. No, I tell you. I almost. No, there's only supposed to be an intermission between acts 2 and 3. I added another intermission between 1 and 2 because I felt like I was gonna throw up. I'm serious. I'm serious. Zach was back there. I was like starting to like choke, and it was starting to come up, and I almost just did the intermission. 4 minutes. Alright, Gabe, your part's coming up, so you get ready. Hi, guys. We already did. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming into town now in Fords. Everybody locks their doors at night. Ain't been any burglars in town, but everybody's heard about 'em, of course. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This certainly is an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop. A windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, lots of sun, moon, and stars, too. Yes, you come up here on a beautiful day, and you can see range upon range of hills. Awful blue they are. All the way up there to Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And if you got a glass, you could see all the way up to the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where Conway and North Conway is. And, of course, everybody's favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock's right here. And all the towns that lie around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Petersboro and Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, it's a beautiful place up here. Mountain laurels and lilacs. You know, I often wonder why a person would want to be buried in a place like Woodlawn or Brooklyn when they could pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the Old Stones, 1670 to 1680. Strong-minded people who came a long way to be independent. Summer people come up here all the time, laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. I guess it don't do no harm. And genealogists come up all the way from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution, or of the Mayflower, or some other nonsense. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Whenever you get around the human race, there's layers upon layers of nonsense. Over here are the Civil War veterans. Iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys. Had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, even though they never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, folks. The United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. Remember I told you she died of pneumonia? And let's see. Mr. Stimson, the organist at the Congregational Church, and Mrs. Soames, who joined the wedding, so you remember? Yes, many others. Oh, and Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while he was on a camping trip up to Crawford and Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill to be buried. Then we all know how it is. Sunny days, and rainy days such as this one, and snow. I mean, we're all glad they're in a beautiful place, and that we're coming up here ourselves when our time's up. Now, there are certain things that we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. For instance, we all know that something is eternal. It ain't houses, it ain't names, it ain't the earth, ain't even the stars. Down deep in our bones, we all know that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. The greatest people who ever lived have been telling us that for the past 5,000 years. Yet you'd be surprised how often people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. And we all know that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for long. Gradually, they lose hold of this earth. of the ambitions they had, of the pleasures they had, of the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out like a candle. In all that time, they get slowly indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. And they're waiting. They're waiting for something. Something that they know is coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for that eternal part of them to come out in the clear? Now, some of the things that they're going to say might hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those things grow kind of pale around here. For what's left when your memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people around here. There's Joe Stoddard, our local undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here comes the Grover's Corners child that left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
Why, I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sim.
Yes, I've been away about 12 years now. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe, but I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little and come see the old home. You look well.
Yes, yes. Can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Samantha.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCartney. I used to do chores for him when I was a child.
Yes.
He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarthy here a number of years ago.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course, of course.
Yes. Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, about this time, and today, another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's girl. Sam Craig.
I hate it when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose to in verses much, Joe?
No, not usually. Mostly the brave pick a verse.
Doesn't sound like Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hersey sisters left. Now, let me see. I wanted to look at my father's and mother's graves.
Over there with the Craigs, Avenue F.
Oh, he was an organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was written up in the Boston papers at the time.
Oh, how did she die?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. It was her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
Oh, and the grave's gonna be over there?
Yes. There ain't much more room here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. You'll excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia? It's my daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls to ever graduate from high school. Heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Was on the same road we lived on.
Right, Smart Farm.
I like that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
It's raining.
Yes, they'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought it out of the legacy you left us.
I did?
Yes, Mother Gibbs, don't you remember the legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350.
Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark that they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it is a lovely farm.
The rain's cooled it off a little. The northeast winds always do the same. If it isn't rain, it's a 3-day blow.
Look, they're finished. They're going.
Shh, dear. Just wait and be patient.
Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? I never noticed how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning until night, that's all they are. Troubled. But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again, into the land of the living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just then, for a moment, I was talking about the farm, and for a minute, I was there, and my baby was on my lap as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
If I can go back and live all those days over again, why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
It's not what you think it'd be.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
It's true. Some have tried, but soon enough, they come right back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day that I first knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You'll not only live it, but you see yourself living it.
Yes?
And as you live it, you see the things that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and look for what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But I have to know it for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No, at least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married, or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
As you wish. The day is now February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of the day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn then. If you remember, it had snowed for the past couple of days, and it had just cleared up the night before. They had just begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up now.
There's Main Street. And why, there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the library stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, it's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the white fence that used to go around our house. Why, I'd forgotten all about that. I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be down to make breakfast in a minute.
Will she?
And if you remember, your father had been away for the past couple of days and had just come back by the early morning train.
No.
He'd been down to his own college to make a speech, down in western New York at Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsome. And there's our policeman, but he's dead.
Whoa.
He died.
Bessie. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
Been rescuing a man down near Polish Town. Got drunk, lay down the snowdrifts. Thought I was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Good morning.
Children! Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsome. Whew, it's cold.
10 below my barn, Miss Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
I will.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special, on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes, yes.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes. Just been back to my old college up in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Rescued a man down there at Polish Town. Darn near froze to death he was.
You must get in the paper.
Twasn't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How did it go, Charles?
It went all right. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes. Can't think of anything that's happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsome says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Any mistakes in the paper?
None that I noticed. Coffee is ready when you want it. Oh, Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes, I got something here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children, it's 7 o'clock. Now, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all. Everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Can I go inside? Good morning, Mama.
Well now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie, and I reckon you can guess who brought over the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I was bringing in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George, I'd forgotten all about that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It will help keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama, just look at me for a minute, as if you really saw me. Mama, 14 years has gone by. I'm dead, Mama. You're a grandma, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead too, Mama. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We just felt terrible about it, don't you remember? But just for a moment, we're all together. Just for a moment, we're all happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
Mama, it's beautiful, and it's just what I wanted. It's lovely.
Well, I'd hoped you'd like it. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it in manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Be sure to make a big fuss about it. Your father has something for you, too. Don't know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It all goes by too fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all that was going on, and we never noticed. Take me back, up the hill to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners, and Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking, and Mama's sunflowers, and food, and coffee, and new iron dresses, and hot baths, and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No, they don't. The saints and the poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No, I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To move around in a cloud of ignorance, go up and down, trampling on the feelings of about you, to spend and waste time as though you had a million years, to be in the mercy of someone's self-centered passion. Now you know. That's the happiness you want to go back to, blindness and ignorance.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth and you know it. Emily, look at that star, will you? I forget its name.
That's my boy Joel. He was a sailor. He'd sail on porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful. Star's mighty good company.
Yes, yes, it is.
Here's one of them coming now.
Mother Gibbs, it's George. Shh. It's George.
And my boy Joel, who was a sailor. He used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem to believe it, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave. He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily?
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear, they don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep now in Grover's Corners, although there are still a few lights on. Down at the depot, Shorty Hawkins has just watched the Albany train go by, and in the livery stable, a few people are sitting up late and talking. But for the most part, it's clearing up. There are the stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think there are no living beings up there, just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself. And the strain's so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You guys can go ahead and get a rest. Now that is traditionally the end of this play, but I wanted to end it with a few more words of insight. Thornton Wilder wrote Our Town back in 1939. Seeing the rapid changes in the world, he wanted to capture the way of life and thinking of small-town America. He wanted the people of the future to remember how simple life was, and how easy it is for people to go about their lives without taking the time to cherish them. In doing so, however, he accidentally captured something else. Quite unknowingly, he captured the thinking and subconscious mind of a lost and dying world. As Mr. Wilder wrote, we all know that something is eternal. It ain't houses, ain't names, ain't the earth, ain't the stars. The greatest people who ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years. Down deep, we all know that something is eternal. Perhaps no truer words have ever been spoken. In each of us, there resides an eternal soul that cries out to our Creator for hope of the life to come. As the play said, they're waiting. They're waiting for something that they know is coming, something important and great. Sadly, many in the world will never know what that something is. They cannot understand what that something is on their own. As the Apostle Paul proclaimed in the book of Romans, how shall they believe on him in whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? As this play shows us, everybody knows that there is something eternal, but it's only us Christians that know what that something is. And it's our job to tell them. And that is the challenge that I leave you with tonight. Wherever you go, take the gospel of hope with you. Take it to your friends, to your family, to your coworkers, to where you live, to where you work. Make it your goal to reach out, if you will, and take the gospel to your world and to all of our towns. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. It's getting pretty late here, too. And so, I must wish you all farewell and good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.